first is going to be Shavasana, so that's a pose that we all love. And then the second one is called legs up the wall. Now, if you are able to shuffle next to a wall, brilliant, you can use that. But if not, then we'll use the strap around the thighs. So you need to have it kind of made up ready for that. And this is a bolster, but it's really only the thickness of a sort of a thick blanket. And I use that to wedge under my lower back a little bit to give me a bit more support in the pose. So we're going to take Shavasana for about 4 or 5 minutes, and then we'll take the leg up the wall pose for about 3, and then we'll come back up to sitting. So we are literally just going to lie down on the job. Now, even though it's Shavasana, if you want to start with the knees high and the feet wide, you can do, just whilst you're letting your spine lengthen out a little bit. And wriggle the shoulders underneath and get a nice long neck. And let the hands come by the side of the body. And in your own time, lengthen a heel out at a time, corner edges of the mat. And then let the toes hang out to the side. So the element of keeping the heel on the floor and sliding it out is quite important. It's all about what happens in the hip flexors, the pelvis, the lower back muscles. And keeping the heel on the ground and sliding out just means that everything moves over nicely and there's a transition of ease through the joints. And taking after a couple of breaths, we're going to see if we can start to develop a breath through the belly. So if you feel you need to connect a little bit more with that, you can just take one hand on the belly button. And then you can feel it positively rise and drop on the breath in and out. So we'll begin to just bring ourselves out of Shavasana. And going to draw the heels back in. You're going to take the strap around first leg, second leg, and then just make sure you haven't got any tangles in the strap. And it goes around the thighs, and allow the knees to be about hip width apart. They don't want to be any wider than that, really opening out. And then for me, I'm going to use that bolster just underneath the base of my spine, just sitting on the edge of it really, but a blanket would do the same. And then we're going to extend the legs up towards the sky. So legs are going to be relatively straight. You can take the arms out nice and wide, or if you wanted to, you could even take them above the head or have them alongside the body, whatever feels more comfortable. And we're just trying to find a place where the feet can be over the hip joints, so the weight is coming through a natural line, even though the legs might be quite bent. And just letting the blood and lymph drain from the legs. And we'll bend the knees in towards the body so we can let the feet gently down to the floor. Move the blankets out of the way, bolsters, take the straps off, and then just roll on to whichever side you like to lift from to draw yourself up to sitting. So we're going to come into butterfly pose. So I'm going to use a block for that one. And allow myself to just bring the soles of the feet in so that the knees are out, hence the butterfly wings. Little rock on the sitting bones. Start to ease yourself forward so you come onto the front of the sitting bones, and then rather than physically trying to get a lot of space in the body, we're just going to drop the chin down and let ourselves round. So you can have the hands just sitting on top of the feet, and elbows out wide. The elbows could come on the inside of the thighs. You could take the hands underneath the thighs, and the shins, the hands are, elbows are more closer to the floor. And it's your choice whether you have the feet closer or further away. The further away, the more the hips will open up, so the deeper you can get into the joints. Closer in, the more you're going to work into the groins. So your choice as to where you want to feel the stretch. And trying to let the back of the neck relax so the head can drop. slowly bring ourselves back up. And we're just going to use the hands underneath the thighs to ease the legs back in, and then give them a little bit of a stretch out. As I do that, I'm going to just ease my way forward off the block. You can, by all means, stay on the block, but we're going to take caterpillar pose, which is kind of like a seated forward fold, but again, round spine. We're going to do a lot of round spine work this evening. And I just find that the legs are closer to the ground, so there's less chance of pressing into the knees. Again, you could use the bolster or blanket underneath the knees if you're finding you're having any issues there. We're going to sit up nice and tall. Just place the hands onto the thighs and then let the chin drop. Take a breath above the spine gently down. Let the elbows come onto the thighs. So we're not trying to reach forwards, we're just letting everything sink into that very rounded back. So it does cause us to breathe into the ribs in a different way when we're doing rounded spine work. We're encouraging the body to lengthen out the discs on the posterior side, compressing on the anterior side. So the nerves are getting quite a bit of workout as well as the body. And multiple layers of muscle that runs down the back and against the spine, also being stretched. On the breath in, we'll use that breath to lift ourselves up nice and tall. Now we're going to take a happy baby pose. It's actually called stirrup pose in the yin practice, and that's because it's a little bit more like straddling a saddle, be it that the fact that the saddle is slid underneath the horse somewhat. We're going to bring the knees wide once we've laid down on the ground, and take the hands down the shins towards the ankles. So we're not going to wrap the hands around the feet. We're just going to extend the soles of the feet to the sky. So we're trying to get a sort of vertical shin and just holding on to the side of the ankles. Now, if your hips are open enough for you to drop your knees down sort of towards the side of your body, then you may be able to get your hands around the soles of the feet. But we're not using that as the focus of the pose. The focus of the pose is to let the hips drop with gravity and to maintain a very long flat back, including through the spine. Now it does get a little tiring on the hands. So an alternative to this would be to actually take the strap around the feet and then just hold onto the strap. And hopefully you can start to feel the hips and the hamstrings and taking some movement. Things just opening up a little bit, getting a little softer. And we'll release the heels down. Bring the knees a little closer into the body, roll on to whichever side you like. Use the hands to lift ourselves up very gently. Now we are going to come into a squat, but I'm going to use a block and a brick. I'm going to have the brick quite close to the edge. Literally lift myself up, sit on the block, and then bring my feet in. And I'm going to have the feet pointing out a little bit, bring the heels in, and then just rest the arms on top. So it's a really easy version for the knees, for the spine, and then everything relaxed. There's nothing wrong with taking this pose more traditionally, just maybe taking one and brick out and letting the hips sink down. That's your choice if you're using this video again at a later date to modify that. And in fact, whilst we're talking about modifications, if you're using this video at another date, you might want to be close to a wall, and then the legs up the wall pose can actually be really up a wall. Take a breath, fingers on the floor. Just push forwards a little bit to lift your bottom off of the block. Turn the toes in from wherever they were, so they're parallel. And then we're going to dangle. So we're going to keep the hands on the floor if you wish. Or you can take hold of each elbow and make a little cradle for the head to rest. Your choice. Bent knees, ribs on thighs. Spine hangs out of the pelvis. Weight is even through the feet. So just doing this will stretch out the hamstrings and the lower back muscles. Get a little bit of a stretch through the armpits as well. So latissimus dorsi getting a bit of work. And we'll release from there. Bring the fingers to the floor. Now I'm going to use the block for this next pose, and I'm going to turn sideways just so it's easier to see. If you've got a hard floor, you might want to do the same so that the heels stay on something soft. If you've got a carpet underneath you, you're kind of a winner there. And we're going to take the feet out as wide as we comfortably can. Again, just rock into the front of the sitting bones. We're going to let the legs just do what they want. So they might roll in or out and might just keep pointing up towards the sky. Bring the hands onto the thighs, the shins, and then lean forwards. Now, if you're able to take the hands around the outside edge of the feet, that's great. We're just hinging over and letting the body hang. Bending the knees, that's fine. Not a problem at all. We're trying to let the leg muscles relax and really just notice where the body moves to. And finding out what holds on, what is able to give. So you really start to find out where those tight spots are. They might not necessarily be where you thought they were in the body. Might be resonating from a different origin. Take a little breath. Allow ourselves to lift up. Now bring the legs back in. We'll turn again, back onto the mat. And we're going to take a reverse tabletop. So we're going to take this slightly easier version where the feet come out about hip distance apart. Lift the bottom off the ground. Allow ourselves to draw the hips up to about the height of the knees. Roll the shoulders back, keep the chin in towards the chest. Try and lift with the buttocks, which sounds like a strange request. I'm just letting that spine lengthen out a little bit. The front hip flexors opening out. Last breath. And ease your bottom down to the floor again. Now there is a pose in the yin tradition that's called the snail, and it looks very similar to plow, or halasana pose. But the difference is the spine is rounded rather than trying to lift the hips up towards the sky. So if you're happy to take this on board, you could just allow yourself to lie on the ground and draw the knees in towards the chest and hold them there. But if you want to have a go, you're going to roll down, and take the hands towards the hips, lift the feet up towards the sky, roll them over, and let the feet come to the floor, and then bend the knees. So you're rounding the spine. Now the toes may or may not touch the ground. You might be able to sneak a blanket behind or a cushion. So you got to lift the floor a little closer. So now the reason for all the forward bendy stuff in the spine becomes a little more obvious. It's just really preparing us for this. Now to come out of this, I would suggest bringing the hands underneath the spine to support. Draw the knees in towards the chest so you bend. Bring the heels in towards the buttocks. And then allow yourself to bring the hands back to the floor. Use a little bit of core strength to roll your spine gently back down to the floor. And when you arrive flat back, allow the feet to come to the ground close to your bottom just for a moment. And then we'll lift the arms up towards the sky and we're going to drop them towards the back of the mat behind our head. We're over the top of the back of the mat. So the chest opens out the opposite way. Now we'll bring the arms back, roll onto whichever side you like. Use the hands to press down and ease our way back up to sitting. Which is really so that we can maneuver a few of the props that we're using around. So I'm going to take my trusty bolster, which could be a blanket or so, and I'm taking that onto my right side. I'm going to bring the heels in towards the bottom and ease myself down. So that bolster is about halfway along through the hips. I'm going to lengthen my right leg out, bring my left foot on. I'm going to move the hips out to the left first, forgot that, and then gently twist the body over towards the right. I'm going to lay my knee and my ankle on my bolster or my rolled up blanket or my multiple blocks. And I'm going to try and let this left shoulder sink down to the floor. So you might want to take a cheeky little lift and adjust. And you can turn the head in the same direction as the outstretched arm if you wish. And you can use your right hand onto that left thigh just to hold it in place if it's trying to lift a little bit. So one knee recline twist. You obviously run out of inspiration for names. But what this does is it puts a little bit of pressure into a joint on the vertebrae called a facet. Which looks after the extension and the rotation aspects of the spine. We have a small covering of cartilage, and this just gives a little bit of compression, and then when we release, we have an effect of osmosis to draw nutrients back into those cartilages or cartilageous surfaces to help maintain them. So the twist in itself feels good. It's good for the nervous system. It feels nice and pleasant in the mind. It's one that you can relax into. But it's doing a lot of good for the spine. Take a little breath from here. Allow ourselves to bring the feet back onto the mat and bring a little wiggle to bring the hips back into center. And then I'm going to move my bolster to the second side, but easier to see what's going on this time. Move the hips out to the right. Now there's no exact science to how far you move. It's more of a comfort, inclination, natural, instinctive movement. And then if you need to move, you can adjust. Roll over to the left. Again, making sure that the heel, ankle, and the shin are all supported. Take a little time to maneuver the hips into place, and then you're going to roll that right shoulder down to the floor. And we'll slowly release our way back out of that. And then roll onto a side of choice. Use the hands to come back up to sitting. So move my bolsters off to the side. Now for something a little more energetic. So I'm going to swing the feet round to the back. I'm going to come up onto my hands and knees. Allow myself to spread my fingers. Take a little breath. Tuck the toes underneath. Ease it back into a down dog. So allowing yourself to walk slowly your dog out. So the body gets used to transitioning weight through the shoulders, keeping the hands firmly planted to the floor. Getting that nice stretch through the arch of the foot, the Achilles, back of the calf and the lower portion, then into the upper body of the belly of that muscle. Through the knees, starting to get a little bit of a stretch into the hamstrings and lower back muscles as well. Now we're going to come back down to the ground. So come into a little plank and draw ourselves down. I'm going to allow myself to take one block and place that underneath the bottom. You might want to use more than that or a cushion. And bring the knees together. I have the heels out towards the outside edges of the hips, so the toes are pointing back. I'm going to let the hands walk back gently, so I start to lean in, draw the belly in, keep the chin in towards the chest. I'm going to lengthen the spine out a little bit from the pelvis, so it feels long and flat. I'm going to shift the weight into my left hand and draw my right hand across my chest. I'll lift it out to the left side and up towards the sky. Let my eyes follow and bring my right hand back down to the ground on the opposite side. Shift the weight a little bit over to the left, right, and then release that right hand up. Take that over. And we'll go through. Do the same again on the right. So this time just lifting it up. Rolling it down. Coming over to the right. This time the left hand goes low across the chest and up and back. Right arm lifts up high, comes across and down. So there's a little bit of a change between how we're moving around through the shoulders. We're taking them up and back, or we're taking them forwards and across. The idea is that you just alternate through those two. So if you get lost, it's not that important. It's just really about opening the shoulders up and getting the spine to open up itself. And interestingly enough, I can hear a certain amount of clicking of cartilage across the chest. The microphone might be able to pick that up. And then we'll let ourselves come back up to a nice sitting posture. Use the hands to lift up. We'll come into all fours again. I'm ready for some cat-cow. So just adjusting the knees underneath the hips, drawing the chest forwards, rolling the shoulders back, tucking the pelvis the opposite way, rounding the spine, pressing to the hands and the shins. Long breath coming into the body, we draw forwards, rolling the shoulders back. Belly draws in to lift, we spread the wings as we press down into the floor. Last breath coming forwards. Into a neutral spine, we'll tuck the toes underneath. Move back into that down dog position. And we'll draw the left knee into the chest and bring the foot through between the hands. So you're going to check your front knee is over your ankle. You keep the back knee off the ground for a moment and just press out through the back heel. You're trying to get the buttock on the right, which is going to be your long leg, to feel like it's stretching out a little bit. This guy on the left, that's already doing quite a lot of work in lifting, but we want to get a little bit of activity feeling, just connecting the mind and the body, bringing all the thigh muscles stretch out, and we get that buttock to lengthen. It doesn't take long. And then we'll let the knee down to the floor and tuck the toes, bring hands onto the front shin and lift ourselves up. And when you're ready, you're going to let the arms come out wide, level with the shoulders. And we'll turn the body gently and slowly as we exhale in towards that left leg. And then we'll draw the breath in and bring the arms back to face the front of the mat and the chest. And we'll take it over to the right side. Now, that in itself might seem like a fairly uncomplicated thing to do, but it does require quite a bit of balance. We'll inhale the hands high, sink a little into that front leg, bring the hands to the floor, tuck the toe on the back foot, and we'll step back into the down dog. Just taking our time to open up into that down dog. And then we'll draw the right knee into the chest, bring that foot through between the hands, and again, just taking a little time, checking the front knees over the ankle. On the fingertips, we lengthen the body out. We press out through that back heel. Feel the whole leg, including the buttock, just lengthening away. And we'll lower the back knee down onto the floor as we untuck the toes, bring the hands onto the thigh to lift. And slowly take the hands out wide. Take a breath in. On the exhale, it's a slow exhale and a rotation round to that right side. Inhaling back to the center. And out to the left. Back to the front of the mat. Coming to the front of the mat is better English, isn't it? Hands come high. Down to the floor. Tuck the toe on the back foot. We'll step it back into that down dog. We'll draw that left knee into the chest and bring the foot through. And I'm going to plant the rear heel down onto the floor, ready for warrior two. So the toes are forwards of the heel. And check the front knee is over the ankle. Bring the hands onto the thigh. We're going to use the easy lifting version. And then open up into our warrior two. Now, once we arrive here, we're going to take the hands behind the back, interlace the hands, draw them down towards the floor. That will kind of open the chest up a little bit. So what we need to do is just squeeze the shoulder blades together, draw the belly in, and then try and move the pubic bone forwards a little bit, as if you're trying to drop your tailbone down towards the floor in that direction. So a little squeeze. Whether you look to the front of the mat or to the side of the mat is your choice. It's wherever you find balance. Just letting those shoulders open out a little bit more. You squeeze them a little tighter. And then we release. Come back into Warrior Two. We draw the hands towards the heart and then press both hands forwards as if you're pushing a wardrobe away. Spin the heel on the back foot. Let yourself lean over the front thigh as you come down towards the floor and then step it back into your down dog. So it's all very slow and controlled. Take one more breath. And draw the right knee in. Bring that foot through between the hands. Drop the back heel down. So looking for heel to heel alignment. Bring the hand onto the front side to lift up and open into that Warrior Two. And once you're settled, the hands come behind your back. They draw down. Squeeze the shoulder blades together, and then we've got this little tilt of the pelvis. So the tailbone goes down, the pubic line goes forwards a little bit. You'll draw the belly in a little more as that happens. And you might find some more space, so you can squeeze the shoulder blades together a little more, and then have to repeat through the hips. Drawing the arms down and squeezing the shoulder blades together naturally flares the ribs up towards the sky. And in essence, we're trying to draw them back down towards the floor. And we release, let the hands come back up. Into the heart. Press the hands slowly forward, spin the back hip. Take a breath, lean over the front thigh and bring the hands gently down to the floor. We step back into that down dog. We're just going to let the knees come down to the ground underneath, just so that we can move our brick, if we've got one, or a block, to the front of the mat on a high end, and then back into our down dog. We'll draw the left knee in towards the chest, bring the foot through into the lunge, allow ourselves to take the fingertips forwards a little bit. We're going to press off the back foot into a Warrior Three, so it's going to lean and lift, and then bring the block underneath the heart, and see if you can put both hands onto that to lift yourself a little higher. Press out through the back heel, toes down towards the floor, foot is flexed, toes are spread. Try and keep the head in line with the rest of the body. It's normal for the shoulders to kind of wrap round to protect us a little bit, so you draw them back down towards the pelvis, as if you're trying to tell yourself that everything's okay in this position. Last breath here. Now soften the front knee just a little bit and plant the back foot into the lunge at the back of the mat. Bring the hands back down onto the mat. Step into our down dog. And what we do to one leg, we do to the other. So right knee comes in, foot comes through, balance ourselves, take a little breath, fingertips come forwards, we push off the back toes to lift, catch our balance, bring the block underneath the heart, try and lift up both hands, lengthen out. I slightly misjudged that. I think I'm very, very close to the headbutting the wall. To hear a dull thud, that's what's happened. we'll soften the front knee, back foot into the lunge, hands to the floor, stepping back into our down dog. Walking the hands to the feet, meeting at the back of the mat in a forward fold. Bring hands onto the shins to lift up halfway, weight into the toes. Exhale, fold down. Hands on the shins to lift up halfway, folding down. One last time. And soften the knees, bring the hands onto the hips, shoulders and elbows back, flat spine, hinge up, drive through the legs. Just shake everything out as we walk up to the front of the mat. Allow the feet to be about hip distance apart. Hands come to the sky. Palms reach together. Into the heart, we lean forwards, down to the floor. We're taking a little breath this time. We're going to take the right foot to the back of the mat. Bring the hands onto the front thigh. Take a little breath. Lift up. Now you're going to try and tilt the pelvis into a neutral position, which means we draw the pubic bone forwards, tailbone back, down. Can't do that and talk. You also want to try and square the hips. As we come into the lunge, there's a tendency for the hips to sort of turn off a few degrees. So you want to draw this left hip back a little bit. Square the hips. Now once you've done all that, then you can start thinking about the back foot and pressing out through the heel to get the leg a little straighter. But as that happens, it kind of compromises the pelvis position. So you're playing around with those two bits. And then when you finish with that, take the hands up above the shoulders. Draw the belly in so that the ribs come down towards meeting the front hip bones. High crescent pose. Take the hands to the side and then lean forwards, down, fingers to the floor. Stepping simply into that forward fold. Hands onto the hips, we lift up. Inhale high. Hands through the heart. Exhale down to the floor. Left foot back into the lunge. Bring the hands onto the front thigh to lift. Hands come to the side as you start to draw the body more vertically. You do the adjustments of the hips, square into the front, tailbone down, belly in, ribs down. Hands high, press out through the back heel. Hands out to the side, lean forwards, down to the floor. Step it into the forward fold. Bring the hands onto the hips. Slow lift up. Inhale high. Hands through the heart. Exhale down to the floor. Right foot to the back again. Dropping the heel in as if we're coming into warrior two, which we will do just for a few seconds. But lift up. Open up. Let the hands come behind again as we did before. Squeeze the shoulder blades together. Same pose, except this time we're going to turn the hips and the chest towards the front, lengthen out into humble warrior. Just drawing the body over that front thigh. Careful not to take the knee past the ankle. Lifting the hands high, head low. And we'll simply bring the hands back down to the hips, then to the floor alongside the front foot. Spin the heel on the back and bring that into a forward fold. sinking down. We bring the hands onto the hips to take the breath in, to lift. Back through the heart, and hinge to the floor for the last side. So left foot back, drop the heel in, hands onto the front side to lift. Moving through warrior two, we drop the hands behind. Set the shoulders back, ribs down, turn the hips and the chest, lengthen forwards, and then roll the spine down onto the inside of that thigh, lifting the hands towards the sky. Try and keep about 50-50 through the legs, so back foot is pressing down. Think about the pubic bone coming over the center line of the mat. If it drops out to the side too much, it will affect your balance. And we release the hands to the hips, then to the floor. We spin the back heel into the lunge, push off the toes for the forward fold. Hands come onto the hips. We're going to lift for the last time this evening. Inhale high. Hands through the heart. Long and slow and low. Fingers to the floor. Stepping back into down dog. Bringing the knees down to the floor so we can spin the feet out to the side. And we'll take Dandasana, just sitting back gently, taking the legs out in front. Block close by. Bring the feet together, flex the toes back, sit up nice and tall, roll the shoulders out to the side, hands to the floor to help just align everything. So this is a great opportunity to get rid of that text next if you've spent a lot of time looking down, looking after tiny people, sitting at a desk all day, or even just reading in a chair. Think of this as a rebalancing posture pose. I'm going to release from there. I'm going to use the block again just to lift up for some seated twists. And once you've arrived, you're going to take the right foot underneath, have the knee pointing forwards, down on the floor. Try and relax the bottom leg as you take the left leg over the top and bring the foot in close to your body. So you've got more chance of getting the foot flat to the floor and the knee high. Just check that both sitting bones are on the floor. Now, if the pelvis is rolled back a little bit, you want to draw the front hip bones forwards and up. And that gives you that little bit of length in the spine. Then take the right hand up, roll it across, and return towards the left side. Look over the rear shoulder if that feels optimal. Otherwise, chin faces where the heart shines. Nice, easy way to remember it. And we're trying to press the front hip bones forwards to help with the lift. So it's coming right from the base. And we'll release from here. Take the legs back out in front. We'll move over to left leg under. Right leg over the top. Settle the seat bones. Pelvis lifts forwards and up. Spine erect. Left arm lifts. We rotate round. And then we'll release. So I'm going to bring the feet out in front. I'm going to move off of the block for the last time. I'm going to have the strap close by as well. It will be adjusted in a moment. I'm going to rock out onto the sitting bones as I start to bring the soles of the feet together quite a long way in front. So if you think about taking the feet as far forward as you can and still get the soles of the feet together, you're in the right area. I'm going to lean over the front hip bones. So I'm going to lift them up, roll them over the thighs, settle myself in that space, and then take the hands forward and draw the chest forwards as far as I can. Send the tailbone back. So it's quite strong through the spine. Imagine that you're trying to get the spine to be long and flat rather than particularly rounded. Belly drawn in. Keep looking for space in the spine. Last breath. And then we'll just release the fingers back to lift ourselves up. Now, in this position, we're going to allow ourselves to adjust the strap so that from the position we had where it was wrapped around the thighs, we're going to take it a bit wider. I'm going to bring the heels in towards my bottom and take the strap around the sort of top of the knee, top of the thigh, buckle facing me, rather than actually on the side of the thighs. And then I'm going to draw the strap in a little bit. So now, with my feet together, if I press down onto my thighs, they don't go anywhere because the strap is holding me nice and tight. Now, you can lay down just gently onto the floor from that position, or you can bring the bolster and blankets underneath, or even the cushions, and use the hands to come back. As you do go through this, you're going to need to draw the belly in a little bit, just at the moment where it gets a bit critical. I tend to lift my hips off the floor and tuck the tailbone forwards first, and then allow myself to settle down. Whichever position you end up using, with or without props under the spine, you want to make sure that the head is supported. And then let the hands come out to the side. So it's a reclined cobbler's pose. Again, you might want to just adjust those hips a little bit, just a little lift, a flick forwards. It's a small adjustment, but it pays dividends in the lower back. And then the chest is opening if it's raised and supported. And soften the jaw and let the eyes close. Now, by all means, if you feel comfortable and want to stay here for the duration, you can do. If you'd like to move back into more familiar Shavasana territory, allow yourself to take hold of the strap with one hand, draw that towards you, let the knees come in, and then allow yourself to roll gently off of the bolster. Move it out to the side, and then ease your way back down onto the floor. Now, another alternative to that is to take your bolster or your rolled up blanket, place it underneath the back of the knees, and let the feet be out as wide as you would in Shavasana. It's another nice way of just relaxing into the pose. I'll start to wriggle the fingers, toes, bring some movement into the wrists and ankles. Let the breath deepen into the ribs and towards the collarbones. Use that energy to stretch out in any way that feels good. And then the knees come in towards the body. Final rock and roll and hug. And then we'll slowly roll onto the right side. Just draw ourselves in tightly. In. Relax. And then use the hands to guide yourself from the floor as we exhale. Coming back up to sitting. Hands in towards the heart. Lengthen the spine a little as you breathe in. And then slowly drop the chin, closing the eyes. As the belly draws, let the spine bow down to the floor to seal your practice for the evening. On the inhale, we rest our spine back up. Nice and easy. Eyes open. Namaste. Thank you for joining me this evening. Have a lovely rest of the week.